Hello everybody and welcome to DC Fine Art. Today I'm going to share with you a tip on how I created fur with color pencils on a red panda. And also, if you're wanting longer tutorials and this one is just way too short, I do offer that over on my Patreon. Link is in the description below, so go check that out. And yeah, let's go ahead and get into this little short tutorial. So the first thing that I'm going to start doing is working on my base layer. Now I also call it a mid-tone. Both a base layer and a mid-tone is a color that you choose that you can still go darker with, or you can still add your light tones to it, like you can make it lighter by adding fur on top of it that would be lighter. So it's kind of this in-between color that you can go either way with. If you go too light, it's perfectly fine because you can always darken it very, very easily by going over it with another layer of a darker tone, or at least a slightly darker tone. But if you were to make it too dark, it's really hard to lighten it. So you can always go lighter, just don't go too dark. But that would be the first layer of putting on enough pigment down on your paper to where you can blend it together. So after I get through doing this, we're going to work our way on over to using our odorless mineral spirits in order to blend in the base layer. So I'm just working with little circles, just blending in these colors. Now I did use the Derwent Lightfast, and these colors blend very, very easily. The paper that I'm using is the Canson Pence pastel paper. The smooth side, which is like the back side, is like a lot more smoother. But I'm just going through, blending this all out with my odorless mineral spirits. Now remember that whenever you go on to your second layer, you're going to have to make sure that that is completely dry before adding your second layer. The next step is shading in some of the dark areas of fur. So I'm going to go through and use my pencil here. It's a little bit darker of a rusty tone, and I'm just going to kind of put in some of the areas that I know are darker in shade. So I'm going to go through here, especially around the ears, making a darker tone or a darker shade. This will be blended out with odorless mineral spirits. But I'm going to go in here along his ears and along his nose, just making a little bit of detail with my darker pencil. It's a little bit more of a darker rusty pencil. Going in and around some of these white areas too. Now when drawing some of these fur marks, I am going to look at the direction of the fur and make sure I'm going in the same direction. Just kind of adding some little patches that I seen that was a little bit darker in some of his fur where it was splitting apart. In and around his ears also. So the next thing I'm going to do is add in clumps and clusters of fur. And I'm going to be using my Derwent Chinese White in order to do this. Now I'm not just adding in just individual lines. Each of these little clumps and clusters that I'm doing can be really small, but there's usually about 2 to 3 little patches of little fur that I'm clustering together. Some of them may be like 5, 6, 7, 8, but they're like little clumps and little clusters of fur. And I'm making sure that those go in the same direction that I see in the reference photo. So I'm just paying attention to my reference photo and drawing out those little clumps and clusters of fur in the same direction that I see. These are going more at an angle. And then as I start cresting and going around this little bump or little curve in his head, they're going to start shifting too, and they're going to start moving. These are going to go straight up on his nose. They're going to go kind of at an angle, start turning straight up, and then I'll start working my way around. Now also I'm going back and I'm adding some of my darker tones, like more of my rusty tones. I'm starting to put a little bit of that back in. So anywhere where you see that maybe it's a little bit too light and you're needing a little bit more of that rusty color, you can go back in and start putting those in places that you see that look similar to the reference photo. I'm still going in the same direction that the fur is going in the reference photo though. Now once I get done putting some of this rusty color, I will go back and start working on some of the white and putting more of the little white detailed fur in there. Now I wouldn't be too afraid if this stands out a little bit too much, because we will be going back and blending this out some more. So there's my little clumps and clusters, as you can see, just working it around his eye, making sure to go as close as I can, like in the reference photo. Working in and around his ear. I'm going to start shifting and turning these fur marks. So now once we get to this part, it's softening it out with odorless mineral spirits. So I'm taking my odorless mineral spirits and I am blending this out. Now I am not rubbing really hard, trying to blend it out completely, but I'm trying to basically soften some of these little fur marks because they are definitely like sticking out there, and I just wanted to have more of a softer look. So going over it just lightly with the odorless mineral spirits, just blending it out just enough to where I can tone them down or soften them up, definitely helps. So I'm going through and softening all these areas. Plus that, if I have some of the reddish tone that's kind of mixed in there, that will also help in softening them up and also kind of changing the color up a little bit too. So now we're going to be working on adding more fur back in. So I'm going to go back in and I'm going to start adding a little bit more of the fur, making sure I go in the same direction, but just adding a little bit more. The next thing is shading lightly to add shadow. So I'm taking like a natural type of brown. This is in the Derwent Lightfast, and I'm just using the side of the pencil just to kind of shade in very lightly. I need to stress that this is very lightly, just kind of shading in some of this natural brown in on top of this area here, and this will make it to where it looks a little bit more in the shadow. So part of his head's going to have some light hitting it, the other part is going to be more in the shadow. So I have that down. I will blend it out with my odorless mineral spirits, just enough so that way I can kind of move it around and make that shadow. I'll continue on to the other side here. And then I'll work my way on up. Now this ain't all the brown that I'm going to do. I'm going to do a little bit more so that way the rest of his head is still in a shadow. But look how nicely that looks. That looks like it definitely puts his head more in the shadow area, and the light is hitting it on the other side. Now I'm just softly blending this out. I don't want to use too much OMS or push down really hard, because then I'm going to take away some of my detail, and I definitely don't want to take away the detail that I have in it. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to add a little bit more of the natural brown just in this little area here where I see that this is in the shadow. Maybe a little bit in there. And then I'll come back through and blend that out with my odorless mineral spirits to add to it. And now we got part of his head in the shadow while the other part has more of the sunlight hitting it. Now, I know we're getting closer to finishing this little panda bear here, or this red panda, should I say. So the next and last step that I have is just add back in some of your darks or your lights. So go in, and where you see some darks that you might want to add, where the fur's kind of splitting, you can add a little bit more of the darks back in, and then go back in and add some of the whites also. That also helps make any areas pop if you need them to pop. Or Maybe you like it the way it is and you can leave it, but I like to go back through and add just a little bit more of the darks or a little bit more of my lights, just so that way I've got a little bit of definition to them. So there I am, just adding in some of my darks here and there. I will blend those out because on that side I'm still working on, but the area around his head I am done with. So here is the final piece, and I absolutely loved working with this fur. Remember that you can find this over on my Patreon. The link is in the description below. Become a member and you can get the full lesson. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Remember to leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, leave a positive comment, or share the video. Anything to help push the video out there so that way YouTube knows, hey, we need to go ahead and let everybody know that we're here. And also, just want to let you guys know that next week we will be doing the Powerful Pack reveal. Yay! Super, super excited to do those. And yeah, so fun things to come. And I just want to let all my subscribers know that I appreciate each and every one of you. You guys mean the world to me. And if I could give you all hugs, I definitely would. Because if it wasn't for you all, I would be sitting here talking to myself. Yeah, the crickets are chirping. So I just want to say thank you to all of you. And I'll see you all on the next video. Bye, you guys.